Hi everyone, I am Ankit Goyal, a Vice President at Samagra. And today I will take you through the journey of streamlining apprenticeship in the state of Haryana as part of the Saksham Haryana Skills and Employment Program while working with the Department of Skill Development and Industrial Training in the Government of Haryana. So before we move on to understanding how we streamline the process of engagement of apprentices in the state, which made the state a leader in the engagement of apprentices, let us first understand what apprenticeship is. So it is different from any kind of internship programs that we see in that it is a government approved contract between a firm and a candidate. Right. So candidate who's an apprentice and the firm where the candidate gets trained, they enter into a contract which is approved by the government, right? And then the candidate goes for an on-the-job training at the firm's office. Um, while at the firm's office, the candidates they get trained on the industry equipment and the industry processes, and that leads to a creation of a a highly employable workforce for this industry. Um, the engagement of apprentices that is governed by the Apprentices Act 1961, right? And this has been amended from time to time. But the act in itself mandates that all establishments which have people, at least 30 people employed, they are mandatorily supposed to engage apprentices. Right. And the quantum of apprentices is also quite fixed. So at least 2.5% of that workforce has to be apprentices, and that can go up to maximum 15% of the workforce of that particular establishment. Firms which are of a smaller size, they are free to engage apprentices if they feel that they are required between 4 and 30 employees. But if it is less than 4 employees, those establishments, they cannot appoint apprentices. Yeah. Overall, this seems like a win-win situation for both the industry and for the candidate. For the industry, they get to train people at a lower salary as compared to what needs to be paid to full-time employees, right? Because as per the act, the stipend to be paid is only 5,000 rupees per month for certain trades and based on the duration of the course, right? And this can go up to 11 to 12,000 rupees a month, but that is totally dependent on the industry and the course. The other thing is this will always continue to be lower than the full-time salary that is paid to the employees, right? So it is a win-win situation for the industry. Second, they get to train people without the liability of having a full-time person on their roles, right? The duration is fixed from 3 months to up to 2 years. And these candidates, they get to work on everything that a regular employee would do within the firm, right? There is also this option of creating new trades that the industry feels is relevant for them. So there are certain trades that are already defined by the Government of India in the Apprentices Act 1961, and then they can also create newer trades and call them optional trades and get them approved by the government, and they can train candidates based on that. So industry has a lot to gain from this. From a apprentice point of view, this again is a quite a good situation for them where they get trained by the industry. So they become industry ready. And while getting trained, they also get paid by the industry and finally also get certified by the industry. So it's overall a win-win situation for both the industry and the candidate. However, at a national level, it was seen that the engagement of apprentices continued to be really low. And to counter that, what the Government of India did was they came up with this National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme in 2016 to really give a push to the engagement of apprentices. What they did is they made it very easy now for the establishments and for the apprentices to engage with each other. Yeah. So the first thing that they did was they created this national portal, the NAPS portal, where the establishments could register, the apprentices could register, and then they could connect via a contract that was also offered on the portal itself. But apart from that, what they did was the first thing they did was they said that firms that employ apprentices, a part of the stipend that is payable to the candidate, that will now be reimbursed by the Government of India to that particular establishment. And that was capped at a maximum of 25%. So this was one thing that they offered as a benefit. The second was the overall engagement of an apprentice and the training of that particular apprentice that was regulated, that had certain conditions for the establishment. So they were supposed to pay for the PF and for the insurance and multiple other things. All of that was now removed. So that made it much easier for the establishments to now engage apprentices. The third, earlier the apprenticeship scheme was only limited to a particular amount, particular kind of firms, which is mostly manufacturing. But now the whole scheme was applicable to all kinds of firms. So be it manufacturing or trade or services or other sectors, every sector was now covered under the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. The idea was that with these kind of incentives in play, the private sector would now lean towards engaging more and more apprentices. And cumulatively across the country, we would see at least 50 lakh apprentices being appointed. However, this was far from the truth. And Haryana came out to be one state which did really, really well. But not that all other states did really well. And Haryana took a lot of initiatives to ensure that they step up their efforts on engagement of apprentices. So in Haryana, if we talk about the journey for the next 4 years, by 2020, what Haryana was able to achieve is the engagement of more than 1 lakh apprentices. This was enabled by the registration of more than 11,000 establishments from Haryana on the NAPS portal. And 1 lakh plus students also got registered on that portal. The key number to look here is 442 apprentices were appointed per lakh population in the state. This number is the highest in the country and much above any other state in the country. So Gujarat, Maharashtra were the other states which have a lot of industries who were expected to do well. But even for those states, the number at this time in October of 2020 was either close to 300 or even below that. So that's how well the state of Haryana did, right? But now let's understand what were the key challenges that were faced by the state in this journey and how did the state overcome those challenges. So let's first look at the different challenges. There are 4 buckets of challenges. The first is unorganized manpower. So the government machinery that works on engagement of apprentices, that was not very streamlined. First of all, there were no clear people tasked with ensuring that apprentices get engaged in establishments. And when those people were there, there was no monitoring of these people regularly. So that was the first piece of unorganized manpower. Second, the manpower was not motivated enough to work on solving for the problem of engagement of apprentices. So manpower needed to be motivated. Second, the private firms also did not have a lot of motivation despite NAPs coming in to engage apprentices. Third, wherever, and especially this is especially true for the government establishments, wherever the government establishments even wanted to engage apprentices, either they did not have enough people internally who would train these apprentices, or they did not have allocated budget for paying stipend to these apprentices. So that was the third problem. And the fourth is, despite all of the act being there and the scheme being there for promotion of apprenticeship, most firms and most candidates who were getting trained, they were not aware about apprenticeship at all. So the state looked at all these 4 things and they went about solving for them. On the first one, at the state level, a dedicated cell was created working only on apprenticeship. So within the Department of Skill Development and Industrial Training, this dedicated cell came up, and the responsibility of the cell was to push for engagement of apprentices across both government and private establishments. Second, at a district level also, field cadre was created, which was responsible only dedicatedly for implementation of the apprenticeship scheme. So whatever the state team was tasked with, that responsibility was now delegated to these district level officials. Their major responsibilities were to go to industries, make them aware about the whole apprenticeship program, get apprentices appointed there in those firms, and also ensure that quality of training there is good. So this was the key responsibility of these people. The third was for easy monitoring of these people on the ground, cascaded WhatsApp groups were created where these people could be easily monitored. Right now that the manpower was in place, the second thing was to now create the right kind of motivation for these people. So first thing was that all bottlenecks were removed for these people to actually perform their job. So for the district officials, an allowance was provided to them so that they could actually travel to different industries, speak with them, and also reimburse whatever telephone charges that they were incurring while doing their job. The second, there were incentives linked to the performance of these people. So they had now very specific targets for engagement of apprentices, registration of industries, registration of students. And whenever those targets were achieved, appreciation letters were issued. When those targets were not achieved, show cause notices were issued to these people to nudge them into action. And for the private establishments, an incentive was created by saying that if 2.5% of engagement of apprentices was something that was stipulated, mandated by the act. But if they went beyond that, and if they engaged more than 5% of their workforce as apprentices, in that case, they were recognized as Saksham Sathis and they were felicitated by the state. And we'll see how that was done. Right. So that was solving for the motivation. So now let's say the state manpower is now motivated and the industries are now motivated. In the government side, we saw that the resources were lacking. So the first is all government departments and all state PSUs, they were allocated dedicated budget for payment of stipend if they hired apprentices. The second, there was a district level committee that was created, and this was chaired by the district commissioner or district collector to debottleneck any issues that were faced by these people. So, be it registration on the portal, be it engagement of apprentices or attracting apprentices for the positions, taking out advertisements, payment of stipend to apprentices, all or any of those problems were now solved for by this district apprenticeship committee. And the third is within each of these government departments, there was a nodal officer who was now appointed, who was responsible for carrying out all of these activities with respect to engagement and attracting apprentices, and then ensuring that high quality training takes place within that particular department. To solve for the awareness issue, first, the district apprenticeship committees were conducted across all districts. 200 plus such meetings happened. These meetings had representatives from all government departments and from all private establishments also in the district. So this ensured that large scale awareness was created through these meetings, and they were conducted monthly among all establishments. The second, apart from these meetings, workshops were conducted, dedicated workshops for creating and promoting apprenticeship as a medium of creating a highly skilled workforce. They were conducted across different cascades. So at a state level, at district level, different workshops were conducted for different stakeholders. The third, apart from these workshops and apart from these meetings, there were multiple other forums used and multiple other channels used to create awareness, both for the trainees or apprentices and for the establishments. It could be by sending out messages on WhatsApp groups. It could be by putting out advertisements in the newspapers. Right? Many such channels were used to create more and more awareness with all stakeholders that were involved. What happened because of this is what we saw, which is more than 1 lakh people being engaged as apprentices in the state of Haryana. Now, if I were to summarize this, apart from organizing the manpower and creating incentives for the people within the government, what the state did for these establishments could be summarized like this. First, the state identified certain key establishments or target establishments. These were basically firms, private firms, which had a large size, which had a large pool of employees, and hence they could hire a higher number of apprentices. So these firms were targeted. They were registered on the NAPS portal, and then it was ensured that they comply with the act. Right, so it could be the Marutis and Honda and Heroes of the country. These were the largest companies basically in the state that were now registered, and they started complying with the Apprentices Act. Second, for all other firms, campaigns were run to ensure that companies now start hiring apprentices. Third, to now create positive motivation, Saksham Sathi Award was given. And second, the distribution of the reimbursement of stipend from the government of India, that was done in public forums. So public meetings were conducted, and all of this was done in presence of other industries to create that positive motivation among these private establishments to hire more and more apprentices. Fourth, for the government departments and the state PSUs, apprenticeship was introduced and very specific targets were issued to them based on the number of employees in these departments. And it was ensured that through regular cascaded reviews at all levels, the targets are met. So the chief minister was reviewing the Department of Skill Development on their progress. The Chief Secretary was reviewing all government departments on their progress in appointing apprentices. The Additional Chief Secretary of Skill Development was reviewing various departments and also various districts. And finally, the district collectors, they were reviewing the government establishments at the state district level and also all the private establishments to ensure that progress is happening in the engagement of apprentices. Let us look through some of the pictures on what happened. So, like I said, certain workshops in priority districts were conducted. Workshops had representatives both from government departments and also from the private establishments. These workshops served two purposes. One was to create awareness among these industries about engagement of apprentices. And second, in the later phase of the program, it was also used as a review of the targets that were allocated to these particular establishments and departments and how they were performing on the engagement of apprentices against those targets. Second, on the motivation front, this is an event that you see where a check for the reimbursement of a part of the stipend to a private establishment was being given in presence of the minister of the department. Similarly, the Honorable Chief Minister of the state felicitated certain industries who had appointed more than 5% of their workforce as apprentices. They were felicitated as Saksham Sathis during that event. And then cascaded reviews were happening. The chief secretary reviewing all government departments on the left side about their engagement of apprentices. And on the right, we see a district commissioner reviewing the progress at a district level among the government departments and also private establishments for the engagement of apprentices. Finally, when where certain establishments, they were not appointing apprentices to the tune of 2.5% of their manpower, the state was free to also take action against them because this was in contravention to a national legislation. So that is what essentially certain districts did. They sent out legal notices to some establishments after they were sent enough nudges to hire apprentices. So when finally that did not happen, legal notices were sent, and in some cases, fines were also levied on these firms for not complying with a national legislation, right? So first created awareness among these private establishments, then also created positive motivation for them. And in case all of that did not work, the state went on to also impose levies and fines and take some certain kind of punitive action against firms that did not comply with the national legislation. This led to a lot of momentum on the ground, and Haryana evolved as a success story for engagement of apprentices. This was recognized in public media and also by different state and the central government. States like Rajasthan and Bihar actually came to UP to understand what UP was really doing well and how this model of engaging apprentices could be replicated in their own states. The Government of India also, through multiple letters and through various awards since 2017 to 2020, recognized the efforts of Haryana and really congratulated the state on how on what the state had achieved in the engagement of apprentices. Thank you.